Hey guys, it's Johnny from RichGuin. Today I want to try and start talking a little bit about what makes XRP valuable. You know, I started to really kind of question. I was watching a lot of videos, a lot of people saying different words that I didn't totally understand. And I figured, well, you know what, maybe other people are in this position. And so over the last week or so, I've really been kind of studying XRP to determine, okay, yeah, it's a currency, but what does it do? You know, like what is exactly the use case for XRP? And for some people, it's just easy. It just moves money from bank to bank, and it's for international transfers. Okay, but how does it do that? You see what I'm saying? Like, how is XRP utilized to do that? And I found out that there's a lot about this process that I don't personally know. And so what I want to do is to just take a moment about and share some of the things that I found to maybe help you understand, okay, why is XRP worth investing in now, buying now, collecting up now? And so the things that I've found is probably most easily explained kind of with a specific scenario. So in this scenario for the video, we're going to be talking about a Mexican bank that is pesos, but is sending to a Japanese bank to a recipient who wants to be paid in yen, Japanese yen. Okay, so basically the idea that we're going to look at, just for comparison purposes, between the traditional system, which is SWIFT, of how something would be transferred from country to country or bank to bank, and we're going to compare it with how Ripple, utilizing their proprietary system, RippleNet, utilizes XRP to make these payments possible and make them quicker, faster, more secure, and much cheaper. And you guys are going to be blown away just by taking this simple $1 million transfer of how much is paid in fees on the SWIFT system versus how much would be paid approximately in utilizing RippleNet. So why is it expensive in SWIFT? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The bank in Mexico, right, isn't going to just send yen, right? So it has to convert their Mexican pesos. So our example is $1 million worth of Mexican pesos is being transferred to a Japanese bank to be converted into Japanese yen. In the SWIFT system, if the bank doesn't have the ability to transfer $1 million worth of pesos into the current system's currency, which is dollars, right? They would have to go outside to money exchangers or things like that. There's cost there. There's cost involved, and sometimes it's between 1% and 3%, right? To convert the money. Now that's not on one side, that's on both sides. So the Mexican side, because they're transferring Mexican pesos into the currency that will be used for the movement, which is dollars, right? So there's slippage, there's all sorts of things, pain points there. And then you have the Japanese bank that's going to have to take that the dollars, and then once again transfers those dollars into the Japanese yen. Sometimes it can be done in-house, and sometimes they have to even go outside to other money exchanging groups. So that can only increase the amount of money that these banks need to spend. Now, the banks won't be doing it, it'll be the customer, but the banks will have to charge a fee for the money exchange if they don't have it to do in-house. But let's say, in this case, the Mexican bank has enough to cover $1 million worth of pesos, and they're moving it. Now they would go to SWIFT. Now SWIFT charges a fee between $500 and $200 to transfer that amount of dollars to the Japanese bank. So when I was doing my study, and I realized that these two banks, between the two of them, would spend between $10,000 to $30,000 just to move $1 million. Because, you know, like what I was talking about, is that the exchange fees, the transfer to SWIFT through SWIFT, and paying the fees there. And the time that it takes to process that is between 3 and 5 days, right? Now that's not taking into account business days. That's not taking into account, holidays that perhaps the banks in Mexico are closed versus the holidays that the banks in Japan are closed. So on a good transaction, right, the banks would have enough cash to make this transfer happen. And the total process would take 3 to 5 days, right? With no hitches, no issues, no, incorrect count numbers, anything like that. In a good scenario, the estimate that I was able to calculate was around 10,000 to transfer 1 million, right? That's okay. But if they have to reach out, exchange money at other places, or to get the currency, the amount of currency that they need to make the transfer, it could be up to 30,000. The long wait, 3 to 5. Now, let's compare that with RippleNet. Okay, and we're gonna get back to why XRP is intricate to this situation. RippleNet was created by Ripple as basically a place where banks could create a account with them. And with that ownership, obviously there would be upfront costs like setting up APIs, all the connections that the bank would have to do to be able to utilize RippleNet for money transfers. So there's a little bit of upfront cost, but I'm thinking it's negligible because I don't know the exact numbers on that. So that's the only thing I haven't found exactly yet. But let's say, once it's done and they've spent $10,000 or however much, I don't know, I have no idea. But Bank A, which is the Mexican bank, creates an account with RippleNet and immediately have access to RippleNet's internal money exchanging systems, right? So they can exchange Mexican pesos for XRP. And the transaction fees on that are ridiculous low. It's like 0.00001, right? So less than, it's ridiculously low for them to make transactions. Now, different money exchanges might have different pricing, but I really don't think it's going to be anything like what you would pay if you were taking Mexican pesos to a money exchange and exchanging it for US dollars, right? And then turning around making all the fee. So Mexican bank created a profile and an account with RippleNet. They've gone out to the internal swap mechanisms within RippleNet to transfer their Mexican peso to XRP, and then they transfer the XRP to the Japanese bank. So now the Japanese bank needs to, and it goes direct. It's not going through any sort of systems. The fees for it is super low. The calculations that I came out for the total cost that it would cost for between the transaction fees for transferring, exchanging the money to XRP, and on both sides was around $1,000 to transfer $1 million, right? So now the Mexican pesos are XRP, and they've transferred within 3 to 5 seconds to the Japanese bank. Now the Japanese bank receives this XRP, and they need now to go onto RippleNet, and they need to exchange a yen exchange the XRP for yen because their recipient wants to receive yen. Again, there's transaction fees there, but it's negligible, right? Now, what happens if the bank doesn't have enough XRP or doesn't have enough yen, right? Internal to RippleNet, and this is super important. This is where I think a lot of the people that are holding on to big bags of XRP are going to really benefit. Is you're going to have the AMMs, right? The automatic market makers. So there'll be little sections within RippleNet where you can lend these banks your XRP in pairs, right? So let's say you have XRP yen, and they'll use that liquidity to complete the transaction on their end, and you'll get paid a transactional fee for that. I think that's about basically the complete process. of a payment. And the comparison between a Swift transaction and the RippleNet transaction is between 10 to 30,000, depending on how many places they have to go to actually transfer the pesos into dollars, the transactional currency, versus 1,000 maybe to transfer the exact same amount, $1 million. And it's done within 3 to 5 seconds versus 3 to 5 business days. That's why XRP is going to be a game changer, because it's used as the currency that transacts on RippleNet. Now, my next question was, well, okay, what happens though if there's a bunch of volatility with the price of XRP? And it kind of got me down the road looking into RLUSD, right? So when transactions need to be finalized in the same amount of time and all these different things, RLUSD would be used because it's pegged to the dollar. And obviously, I'm sure there'll be a lot of us that go in there and we create pairs with RLUSD, things like that. Through the layer 2s, the secondary AMMs and things like that are built on top of the XRPL to serve as the RippleNet. But the question mark that a lot of people had was, well, what would be the use of using XRP then if RLUSD? There's markets, right, that are trillions of dollars per day, right? Even just the FX market is $6.6 trillion in transactions per day. Currently, I think there's like 48 or 45 billion circulating supply of the XRP. The others is held in escrow. Question marks of the escrow. Is that already divided between banks that are going to participate in RippleNet? Is that something that's, and nobody really knows the answer to that. But it's in escrow. 50 billion is in escrow, and it's essentially there's about 45 billion in circulating supply. So take those two, let's just take the 45 billion, right? And that's what I did for purposes of trying to determine, okay, what do we think could be a potential value of the XRP once this is used by all the banks, and let's say that they capture a large amount, because they are the only ones that are working with a lot of countries on their CBDCs. They're the ones that have already signed, I think, different interviews. He's talked about over hundreds of banks, right, that have already logged in and created accounts on RippleNet to utilize the ability to transfer money. So let's just say that they captured 50% of those transactions. That's $3 trillion in transactions per day. For the numbers, to keep everything super simple, I just went ahead and did the calculations based on the 6.6. I'm thinking, my guess as to the value of XRP once it's being utilized for these type of things, we already have regulatory clarity, right? The SEC is basically on its hind legs fighting to, even Hester Parrish recently when Congress brought him before the SEC, and all the different commissioners for the SEC were sitting at the table. None of them had any love for Gary Gensler, right? I think that there's going to be a very swift change, no pun intended, a swift change in the regulatory clarity for some of these things that are going to save thousands and thousands of dollars per transaction for banks. And if you don't think the banks are going to look at that and start utilizing that, where they would pay $30,000, now obviously they don't, the customer does, but there's still some cost that's involved, that they're going to charge customers for moving that money, right? If they can do it for $1,000 versus $10,000, right? They'll just sit there and say, hey guys, yeah, we're going to charge you $5,000 for this transaction. It's way lower than what it used to be. We've cut the transactions for international transfers in half. Thanks for being a part of ABC Bank. They're still going to get their pound of flesh. They just do. whether that be through custody of digital assets or digital or digitized commodities or stocks. But just the transactions, the $6.6 trillion per day of international transactions, that's a huge number. And you also have a burn rate, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that I think the burn rate is 0.00001 per transaction, XRP, 0.00001 XRP per transaction is burn rate. So that's not today, right? But I could see once it starts getting utilized for these transactions, I can see a $10 to $12 based just on the $6.6 trillion international transactions per day. The value of the XRP would have to be that to facilitate that. Now, who's to say, right? Let's take an example. Who values gold? Who's the person that says that an ounce of gold is 26, I think. I don't know. I think it topped out yesterday at 26. At $2,600. Who says that? Who sets the spot price? Who sets the value of that gold? Right? It's an agreed upon amount. So if you're looking at a certain amount of transactions and you have this currency, who's to say that they don't just go, okay, we all as banks, because we're the primary ones that are using this in a business and we need it to be stable, we need to all agree that the value of this XRP is blank. And I'm not going to throw a number out there because I don't know it. Nobody does. But let's just say that they do, right? So that there's no volatility, there's no issues with, that it kind of keeps the level, the value of that transacting digital currency level. So there's not huge fluctuations, even within that 3 to 5 seconds of transaction time, so that it doesn't lose 10% in transit, right? Who's to say that that doesn't happen, right? We hear things being said, well, flip the switch, David, or Schwartz, or whatever. Once we flip the switch and we turn this RippleNet on and everybody starts using it, the value will go up. Well, I believe, and this is just from what I've kind of some calculations that I've been doing, and I can provide them if you want. I can download it into a Word. If you want that information, I can send it to you. You just have to DM me, and I would send it to you, or I can even post it on my Twitter. But I believe we're looking at a 10 to 12 in the immediate future, a $10 to $12 per XRP. Now that's not anything like what everybody else is saying. I mean, I hear $1,000. I hear $10,000. I've even heard Jimmy Valley say they were thinking that it'd be around 50,000. And I don't doubt that eventually it could be that. I mean, with the burn rate of the XRP and transactions and all the different things, I think that eventually it could get to that. I don't think that that's a 50-meter target. I think within the next couple of years, I think we could see a $10 to $12 XRP. Just on once the system goes live, once the banks start utilizing it to move money, so that's just my take on it. Maybe I kind of rambled. I tend to do that a little bit, but I have been looking into this for a week. I've been doing some calculations to determine, okay, what markets is XRP or does Ripple plan to support, right? We know they're looking into tokenized assets. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that is, because nobody knows what that is. I mean, there's literally probably trillions of dollars worth of property throughout the world. We have no idea. The commodities, if you think about oil, the different types of commodities that could be tokenized. Now, is XRP going to service all of that? No, but I think that they'll have their fingers in it, right? I think banks is just their first step. And so this is a long-term hold for me. I don't have any plans to sell it. It's sitting just in cold storage. I don't have any plans to move it or sell it or do anything. But there's really no point right now. So I feel like that $10 to $12 in the immediate future, I think that probably within the next 10 years, we could see $100, $150 XRP. And that's being super, 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 like, that's not taking into account FOMO. That's not taking into account, it being one of the only few cryptocurrencies that has any sort of determination of whether or not it's a security or not. So, I mean, there's so many variables that it's impossible to really factor in everything. And then you have to factor in the fact that it could just be an agreed upon amount. And overnight it becomes a certain value. So anyway, these are just some ramblings, some things that I've been thinking about and trying to gather my thoughts on understanding how XRP really works. We know it has a use case. We know it's one of the few cryptos that actually has a real use case, and that there's actually a company, Ripple, that's utilizing this cryptocurrency to build business and to make business agreements. There's not a lot of other people already doing that. So, but there are a few. And so I'd like to start doing a deep dive on each of the different coins that I see having some promise. And it's obviously not, we always talk about do your own research, blah, blah, blah. And that's what this is. It's me doing my own research, but I'm sharing with you what I found out and trying to explain what gives XRP the value that a lot of us believe that it has, why it's going to change the game, and how it's going to change the game. More so than we all know XRP and Ripple are going to change the way international transfers are done. But how's it done? And I hope that I explained that well. If you have questions, please put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. And like I said, I'll be posting kind of what I've come up with in my Twitter. And by no means is this the Bible in crypto. I mean, I'm literally feeling my way through it as well. I've utilized different websites, the Ripple site, some of the things that have already been put out by influencers in the space, documents. I've tracked those documents down. And then I've used ChatGPT for the calculations, if you put in this variable, what gives it the value. And I feel like, I've come to a point in my mind where I'm pretty confident that once it starts getting used, we're going to see a significant change in value of each of these tokens. So anyway, I think we've gone on long enough, but I appreciate you guys for watching. Put any comments or any questions you have in the down below, and I'll try to answer them as I get them. All right, have a great day.